Hello, everybody. Welcome to the endocrine system. We are over halfway done with this book and this semester. So, what are we going to be talking about in this chapter? We're going to be looking at the endocrine system. So, all of these different organs that you're seeing here, a couple organs in the head, make up the endocrine system. The endocrine system produces hormones, and these hormones are known as your second messengers. So these are basically, it's your second control system. And so hormones travel through the body and they cause changes within cells. So what are hormones? Hormones are chemicals that are released into the blood and then they alter those cells that they target. And what does the endocrine system actually do? It regulates different metabolic processes, specifically growth, development, reproduction. So while the nervous system is your primary messenger system, it sends signals really fast. So I just snapped my fingers, but you can hear it. So let me try it again. Fast, like a snap of a finger. The endocrine system functions much more slowly, but the results last for a long time. So our nervous system, like I said, is our fast control system. The endocrine system is much slower, but the results last a lot longer. So if we're looking at differences between the two, the nervous system sends electrical impulses, whereas the endocrine system sends chemical messengers called hormones. And then the functions of these hormones depend on what hormone is released, but they're going to help us in reproduction, in growth and development, in maintaining body defenses, homeostasis, metabolism. There are a lot of organs. Dudley, stop. There are a lot of organs in the endocrine system. Some of the organs that are in the endocrine system that we discuss are also part of other organ systems. And we have a lot of organs that are not part of the endocrine system that still function in the endocrine system in a way because they produce hormones. Oh, my dog is going crazy. So really, he's not going crazy, obviously. He's just getting a little bit excited. So some of the organs of the endocrine system, we have the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland, the thymus. Well, thymus I shouldn't have mentioned. The adrenal glands. Those all have only endocrine functions. Then we have the hypothalamus, which is a nervous system organ. It's part of our brain, but it is also known as our master of the endocrine system, and it does produce endocrine hormones. The thymus, which I did mention before, but it also, the thymus is an endocrine organ, but its major job is to activate and maturate T lymphocytes, which are part of our immune system. The pancreas has both endocrine and exocrine functions. So it functions in the digestive system, producing digestive chemicals to help us break down materials, but it also produces hormones. So we have this region called the pancreatic islets that produce hormones. Our ovaries and testes are both endocrine and exocrine in function as well. So they function in the reproductive system and they produce hormones that will help in maturation and production of our sex cells, but they also function in producing eggs and sperm, which is an exocrine function. So the hormones help to match or to produce those eggs and sperm and maturate them, but the eggs and sperm themselves are exocrine or are released via exocrine function. So hormones can be classified either as amino acid based hormones, so protein based hormones, Um, so proteins, peptides, and amines are all considered amino acid-based hormones. We have steroid hormones that are composed of or made from the parent steroid called cholesterol. And then we have prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are known as localized hormones. So they go into the blood, but they really only activate either themselves or a neighboring cell. Hormones target specific tissues. The target cells have to have receptors on them that allow them to bind. So here's a hormone in the blood, and when it finds its target cell, it's going to come out and it'll bind. So you see the shape of the cell's receptors determine if the hormone can bind or not. These ones have receptors that allow the hormone to bind, so these ones are considered target cells. These ones do not have receptors for those hormones to bind, so these are non-target cells. And once they bind, then they can alter the activity of the cells. So things that they might change, they might alter the ability for cells to take in materials. They might activate different proteins or enzymes. They might activate or inhibit cell division. They might produce other proteins or inhibit the release of certain things. So there's a lot of different activities depending on the hormone that's released and what needs to be done. Hormones can act either through direct gene activation or through a second messenger. So this is dependent on the type of hormone. So structurally, if you have a steroid hormone or if you have a protein type hormone, they're going to act differently, because if you remember from our chapter on the plasma membrane, chapter 4, where we were talking about the functions of the plasma membrane, certain molecules can go directly through that plasma membrane. I think it was chapter 4. It might have been chapter 3. So anyways, we talked about this where we talked about the movement of materials through the plasma membrane. Small nonpolar molecules can directly move through the plasma membrane where large and polarized molecules can't. So a steroid hormone is nonpolar, and it can bind, it can move through the plasma membrane and bind to the receptors inside the cell, so they can act directly on gene activation. Whereas protein hormones and peptide hormones, they can't move through that plasma membrane because these are polar molecules. So they bind to receptors outside of the plasma membrane, and then they activate a second messenger inside to do the job of that hormone. And so here you see direct activity. So here's a steroid hormone. Steroid hormone moves directly through the plasma membrane and into the cell. And then once it moves into the cell, it can then bind to a receptor inside of the nucleus and activate gene expression. And here we're seeing that this activity stepwise. So here we have the steroid hormone. It moves through the plasma membrane, through the cytoplasm, into the nucleus, and binds to a receptor. The binding of the hormone and receptor activate mRNA production from DNA to the messenger RNA. Messenger RNA moves into the cytoplasm where it is translated into a new protein. So if we look at a second messenger system, the hormone is going to bind to a receptor on the plasma membrane. This will then activate a second receptor or a second messenger inside. A very common second messenger is known as cyclic AMP. And this second messenger will then activate different processes. So let's look at what that does. And so here we see the whole process. Here we have a protein hormone binding to the receptor. This binding activates the production of cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP then activates different activities within the cell that the protein would have done. So let's look at it stepwise again. Here we have that hormone moving through the blood. It binds to the receptor on the plasma membrane. This activates an enzyme. So typically the enzyme would be like a G protein. And this enzyme produces cyclic AMP from an ATP molecule. So ATP is adenosine triphosphate. AMP is adenosine monophosphate, and it is a cyclic molecule. And the cyclic AMP then causes whatever activity that this hormone would have done. So at this point, you should be able to tell me different organs that are found within the endocrine system, what makes up hormones. So there are what makes up hormones like protein versus steroid versus your prostaglandins. How do hormones interact with target cells? What is direct gene activation? And what is the second messenger system? I'm going to stop here, and so this is a nice short video, and we'll get into the next video in our next, well, we'll get into the next material in our next video. Bye.